Did you know there's a type of chicken spirit that can not only warn you of upcoming danger, but also predict your death? No? Well, keep watching to find out where to find this creature and why it might exist. Welcome to another episode of Boring History. My name is Angela and I'm super curious about whatever rabbit warren of video watching has brought you to this video because, let's be honest, nobody is searching for death predicting chickens on YouTube. Make sure to let me know in the comment section down below how you ended up on this video, and if by chance you were actually searching for a death predicting chicken, you may as well subscribe because clearly we're the same person. You don't have to subscribe, but it would be nice if you did. It's free. Alright, so let's get started. What are Erdhenne? Well, the name quite literally translates to earth chicken, and they're described as a type of house spirit whose voice you can often hear coming from the dark corners of your room or from the ground. There are some discrepancies regarding what exactly Erdhenne look like because they're not always described as chickens, but generally they're thought to be an ashen grey, somewhat dishevelled looking hen. However, it's actually because their voice often sounds like the clucking of a hen that they're called Erdhenne. Erdhenne have also been said to inhabit nurseries at night where they can be seen as a brightly glowing floating orb. Now, some skeptics say that this description was formed by people with overactive imaginations seeing the moonlight cut through the windows of the nursery. But who are we to listen to such naysayers? Erdhenne are good and protective spirits, so if you find one in your house, it's not a bad thing, and they will help warn you and other inhabitants of the household of impending accidents. You can also apparently ask them questions and they'll answer in a series of clucks, but it's up to you to work out what those clucks mean. However, if you actually see one of the Erdhenne as opposed to just hearing it, that's not actually such a good thing because it usually means that somebody in the household will fall ill and die, and it's usually the person who sees the Erdhenne. If you see the spirit and it clucks 9 times or it's flapping its wings rather ferociously, well, that usually means that the head of the household will fall ill and die. I think we're beginning to see why there isn't a clear description of this spirit because everybody who sees it falls ill and dies. But with these characteristics in mind, we could possibly make some comparisons to a banshee because they also tend to scream and shout in times of danger or death. Erdhenne are also not the only times that chickens are linked to predicting the future or death. The Roman army, for example, had a keeper of the sacred chicken. Not sure if that was the official name, but there was definitely a dude or a couple of dudes whose job it was to carry around these chickens as they went off to war. And there were a number of ways that these chickens were utilised in the battle decision-making process. The most obvious, of course, is when they slaughter the poor chicken and then read the insides for advice on what course of action to take. Slightly morbid and not a method of fortune-telling that I endorse. However, there was also another, slightly more friendly way that the chicken could be used. You would throw food at the bottom of the chicken cage when you needed guidance. If the chicken eats everything, you are fine to proceed. If the chicken, however, does not eat everything, you are not fine, and it's probably best to reevaluate your strategy. There was also apparently an incident where a Roman emperor got so fed up at the fact that this chicken wasn't eating that he took the chicken, threw it into the ocean and said if it didn't want to eat, it could damn well drink. Apparently they lost that battle. So always trust your chickens. And now back to our Erdhenne. These spirits fall into the same category as a hulls otter, which apparently is also a thing, and sometimes the names are interchanged when referring to the same type of spirit. Mind you, both are equally hard to find information on. In a publication from 1718, which featured an Aberglaubensammlung or a collection of superstitions, it also very clearly states that if you see either an Erdhühnchen or a hulls otter, it means that death is coming. Hi, princess. The author of this publication also claimed that once he caught an Erdhühnchen in his cellar that had disguised itself as a mouse. Can you imagine having a pet mouse that sounds like a chicken? Best pet ever. Well, actually no, my cats are the best pet ever, which is clearly why she decided to appear right at this moment. But a chicken-sounding mouse, a mouse-sounding chicken, would be a close second. Anyway, the author of this 18th century publication actually makes fun of the superstition because he says after he caught this Erdhühnchen mouse that sounds like a chicken in his cellar, he drowned the sucker and no bad luck befell him the following year. I don't know about you, but I think the guy might have drowned a mouse. Alright, so we've established what are Erdhenne. Well, kind of, considering one of the best sources I could find on the topic was a colouring in book. A very nice colouring in book, mind you. In case you're into that type of thing, I shall put the link for it down below. But that's all beside the point. The point is, why would anyone devise a spirit or a mythical creature of sorts that resembles a chicken? Well, in many cultures, from the Celts to Göbekli Tepe, where we find a huge representation of corvids, the fact that birds are able to fly has granted them a certain symbolic meaning, and it's not unusual to find bird bones within a ritual context. Chickens are often found in graves, and they usually show evidence of having been prepared as food. For example, if we refer to our Celts again, the chickens that were found in those graves had often had their head and feet removed. Also, just quickly while we're on the topic of Celts, geese are often found in Celtic warrior graves. Now, archaeologists and historians aren't sure why, but they suspect it might be something to do with the alert and watchful and aggressive nature of the bird. So the next time you're trying to give somebody a pep talk, just tell them to find their inner goose. Anyway, agriculture was one of the primary occupations of the Germanic tribes. I mean, by the 8th century, the Germanic tribes that lived along the Rhine were already using the heavy plough and were in the process of mounting it on wheels and then using horse and oxen as draft animals. And when it comes to rituals and beliefs, they can usually be categorized into 3 tiers. The first is usually rituals that are completed by priests or religious heads. The second tier are the rituals completed by warriors. And then the third is what everybody else falls into. So say, for example, you have like an altar at home or a statue of the Virgin Mary that you pray to. That all falls into the third category. Now, if we tie together this strong agricultural base of the Germanic tribes with the tiers of ritual, it's actually not at all surprising that we see this type of agricultural influence in the beliefs of these people whose livelihood depended on the success of their crops and livestock. Chickens, hens, or domesticated fowls would definitely have made up an important part of the livelihood of these farming families. So it's actually not too far of a stretch to see how a chicken could turn into a good house spirit that not only offered protection, but also offered warnings of impending doom. Praise be to the chickens! And on that note, I think we've talked enough about chickens for one day. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe because I look forward to sharing even more boring history with you in the future.